I didn't say that in public, I don't think, did I? Or you didn't?
No.
I didn't say that. So, right. So we'll continue right along, and I believe there are some modifications to the agenda, and perhaps Brad should help me with that. Oh, there you go.
In the consent agenda, I'd like to add a supplemental personnel report, and I believe it has today's date on it, yes. Supplemental report dated today, I'd like to add that. I understand for the superintendent's report, we're waiting for someone who we're told is not going to arrive until 7:30, so if we can push the superintendent's report back, I don't know, where do we want to put it? We don't want to move it all the way to the end, do we?
Shall we, we'll jump into it whenever that person arrives?
Somewhere in the middle of the school district visit.
Because we are, if nothing, we are flexible, Brad, right?
But just so folks know, that item on the superintendent's report, we are waiting for someone else to arrive, so we're told 7:30, so we're gonna push that back as needed. And then I'm told at the end of the agenda, you'll see future meeting dates. And is it the policy committee that's incorrect here?
Yes, Thursday is listed as 5 o'clock, it'll be 5:30.
5:30, not 5 o'clock. So those of you on the policy committee on your agenda, for the March 1st, that's going to be at 5:30. And that's all that I have.
Thanks, Brad. Anyone else? Not seeing anything. On to public and staff. And we do have a few folks signed up. And yes, I am. I'm looking at Mary Ann Simpson. If you'd like to stand up, and there you are. You're on.
Good evening. I didn't know I'd get to be first. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Mary Ann Simpson, and I'm a district employee. I'm a speech-language pathologist working in the preschool area, and I've worked for the school district for the past 17 years. I was present at the most recent board meeting and had an opportunity to participate in small breakout groups. I think it was a great experience for everyone present, and I hope it's not the last time that we have such an open dialogue between board members, administrators, and district educators and parents. I was in the back in Dr. Brown's conference room, and a question was posed by one of the board members. And he asked, and I paraphrase in here, he said, "The plans for improvement of special education services are interesting, but can somebody tell me what you're doing right now?" And so I would just love to share a little bit in my little 2 minutes about something the speech-language providers are doing currently to improve services to students with communication disorders. The speech-language provider group is a lively group of dedicated educators who regularly share ideas about most effective practices or high-yield instructional strategies, as is the terminology of the day. We meet monthly for regular meetings and often outside of school for additional conversations. 2 years ago, we were inspired by a landmark article in a professional journal. One aspect of the study looked at progress in speech-language therapy related to frequency of sessions, comparing the traditional model of speech therapy, if you're familiar, about 2 times a week for 30-minute sessions spread out over the entire school year. Some kids certainly get more. Nobody gets really less than that. So they compared that with a more intensive daily therapy that was condensed over a shorter period. Same number of total therapy sessions, but just delivered in a block. The study showed quite a remarkable difference in student rate of growth. So we were inspired by that, and we said, well, we should think out of the box. What might we do? So we initiated a very small pilot study to look at this very concept. We partnered with a professor of speech-language pathology at Ithaca College to help us design the study and do the data analysis. We ran our initial pilot with a handful of school-age students at BJM, and this is our 2nd year. We're running the pilot this time with some preschool students. Mind you, this is a very small research project, and we're still working out the kinks of our research design. But it is a bold effort to ensure that we as speech-language providers are maximizing our time with students, and that the school district and the board gets the best bang for your buck with what we provide. I think you'd have to look at many school districts before you found a small group of educators taking on such a project by their own initiation, no time released to orchestrate the project. This is just one example of the many ways that we as speech language providers are working to improve education for students. We're not a complacent group. We're always eager to find the most efficient ways to help our students achieve. I just want to note thank you to Ms. Sheila McHenry, Mr. Mark Jasinski for supporting our research project, and Ms. Denise Gomber, who was the principal of BJN while we were running the project last year, and also Ms. Sylvia Allinger, who works for the County Health Department, where we get our funding for preschool speech therapy, and she endorsed the project, and we needed her cooperation so we could maintain funding. Thank you.
And Pat, you're up.
Thanks for the opportunity to address the board tonight, and to board member Eldred Harris for asking me with students to address the board at its last meeting. It's important to remember that there are young adults trying to find their way in all of our high school settings we are discussing, whether it be New Roots, IHS, LACS, or any of the other 18 districts that have students attending New Roots Charter School. Of course, I'm aware that there are 167 lives, names, and faces behind the data that I am compiling. I'm a professional educator, and I've worked with young people all of my life. I'd like to call to the attention of the board notes from a recent New Roots Board of Trustees meeting on November 1st, where the Dean of Students presented a plan to begin the declassification of special education students. Minutes from that meeting revealed that New Roots is exploring options to reduce the number of special education students through what they identify as target intervention. ICSD is the home district of at least 19 of those students. I encourage the members of the Special Education Administration to monitor closely the actions of New Roots with regards to their special education population. The responsibility for the education of all students from ICSD, whether they attend New Roots School District or ICSD, ultimately rests with the home district, and I mean that legally. So, you've heard me right, members of this board and this administration are held accountable for the success or failure of students at New Roots, even though they have no jurisdiction over the decisions made by their administrators and their appointed school board. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Looks like Ruth. Oh, there's Ruth. Very good, Ruth.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm sure like many other families, I'm very pleased that the district has chosen to focus increased attention on the issue of special education in the district. I'm very pleased that there is now a plan on the table, at least a draft plan on the table. I'm sorry that in a limited time I don't have time to address the plan itself and its many meritorious aspects. What I'd like to do instead is to bring our focus to the future. What's going to happen now? What's going to happen with the plan as we move forward? Are we going to flesh out the plan? What's the process from here on out? And as we do, I have 3 points that I'd like to make. The first is that I'd like to see us, as we move forward now, to shift our emphasis to what actually happens in the classroom. For as we all know, we can improve the bureaucracy and the bureaucratic aspects of the delivery of special education. And certainly there's a need to do that, but where the rubber really hits the road is in the classroom. That's where we're going to find our students succeeding or failing. So as we move forward, I'd like to see shift our emphasis to a plan for systemic change in the classroom environment for our students. I'd like to know what the plan is going to be from the district for how those classrooms are going to look. For example, mix of students, pedagogies, teacher supports, you name it. I think we need to be thinking about that, and I'd like to see the emphasis shift to that. Secondly, a subset of that, there's a cohort of students who have not benefited in their history at, in the district from the increased focus on early speech and language development, literacy, and RTI. They're too old for that. So there's a cohort that has been moving up through the system that is moving on with their peers. And they do, however, many of them not have the reading skills. They're lagging significantly behind their peers in reading. They're now in late middle school, high school, and I'd like us to devote some attention to that cohort of students. The third point I'd like to make regards process. I note that Barbara Blum, in an op-ed which you probably saw in the last week or two, noted something about family involvement. And I'd like to make a pitch for involving families of special education students. Many of us have had a long history with the district and have significant expertise, I think, in the strengths and weaknesses of the system. I'd like to see a formal way of involving us in the development of this plan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ruth. And Alex Corker? Alex? Student?
No, never mind.
Nothing to say?
I'll go ahead, Alex. But, no, I mean, you don't, you're signed up? Or
I thought that was like to sign in for the meeting. I didn't.
That's a common mistake. We get that a lot, Alex, so it's fine.
I mean, I can say some stuff if you want.
I know what he wants us to say. He wants to get us the meeting over quickly so they can get their government sheet signed.
Now, I mean, there's state law. I mean, Alex, you signed up, and so you have the floor for another minute and 45 seconds.
I'm glad I can be here, and good job.
So how was your day? So we're, Alex, and someone will sign your sheet because you did speak up and you did sign up. So we know you were here and we will verify that. So there are lots of other folks. Anyone else wish to speak that has not spoken at this time? And we will move on. And I'm looking at Ithaca High School. Brock, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So we had the AMC, or the American Math Competition. It was a great success, with great problem solving and fun as well. The senior class presents Winter Formal 2012, March 10th from 6 to 10 p.m. featuring a local, famous, jamming Sim Redmond band. The event will be located at the Lake Watch Inn, and a group dinner is provided. Tickets are on sale at LACS and the high school this week.
Over the past break, many classrooms received smartboards. However, some of the staff were unaware of the installation. Some were over critical teaching space, and some of the instructors were not trained on the use until after they were installed, which means that some of the teachers had very rushed trainings yesterday and today, trying to get them somewhat knowledgeable in how to use a smartboard. About 20 students sat for the American Association of Physics Teachers Physics Olympiad test during Regents Week. The results just came in, and we had one student make nationwide semifinals, which is actually really remarkable.
Recently, students are preparing and signing up for AP exams. And also, we appreciate our new sign. It is very flashy and bright.
Build season for the Code Red Robotics team is sponsored by the IPEI. Is over, and the team is looking forward to the competition at RIT in March, and they're very confident in the robot this year. And comments will come, and go ahead, Aviv.
Certainly, yes. Sorry, No couldn't be here. She took a lot of notes 2 weeks ago, and she was really hoping to be able to speak up, but it's too bad. So I will start with all seriousness. 2 LACS staff are being sent to an all-expenses paid summit put on by the Big History Project in Seattle. If you don't know, the Big History Project is a Bill Gates education project that works to kind of combine humanities, especially social studies, and earth sciences. So we have a global studies teacher and an earth sciences teacher going out there, and they're going to bring back the curriculum to integrate into our school starting next year. And secondly, there's a special site-based council meeting this Thursday to talk about staffing. We just wanted to get that out of the way before our principal Joe has to submit some budgetary stuff. So that's why we are having a special meeting to the site-based council early. And finally, I wouldn't be a true LACS student if I didn't request that the sign in front of IHS was powered by solar. They would find a way to put a solar panel on top of it or something, so that's all I have.
Oh, the lights are solar. We've tried. Any board responses at this time? Anyone other than Sid Redmond is going to play at the
Yes,
band?
sir.
That's pretty good.
You know, dancing. You know, everybody dances to Sid Redmond, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. Okay, right? That sounds good.
It's going to be a lot of fun. If any of you board members would like to chaperone, definitely shoot me an email. It'll probably be as much fun for you guys as it was.
No, it's a great band. Hopefully, it's going to be a great party. I congratulate you. That's great. And we will move on. Correct. No one else has anything to talk about the local music scene, right, Judy? Okay, we're good. Consent agenda?
So moved by J. True.
Second.
Second by Seth, thank you. Any questions regarding consent? There's been a lot of...
I'd point out that 2 of the items are gifts received by the district. One of them rather interestingly apropos to conversation earlier. iPads from IPEI to 3 speech therapists in the district. And also a gift from Health Boosters, just to acknowledge those.
Exactly. And there was an amendment to the consent, which...
Correct, there was a supplemental personnel report
Exactly.
as well.
And the regular personnel report is apart, correct?
Yep, it's there.
And that's fine. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? That's everyone that is here. Sean is absent. And we're on. I'm looking at 7:20, so we're not quite ready for the superintendent's report, correct? No, we are not. So we will go on with board business, school district business, and really just go ahead and start with item A is the comprehensive education plan approval. And if you could speak to that, Dr. Brown, that'd be great.
Sure, and at a previous board meeting, we had Ms. Domber, who's here, and her staff come speak to the plan. What you have in your Dropbox is the many documents that the state requires, which can be confusing. You'll see some overlap and some redundancies there, but overall, what she spoke to at a previous meeting is what's being outlined in the plan. The school is looking to have a comprehensive reading program, implement high-yield instructional strategies, and support instructional coaching. So you could go on and on, but those were the key highlights that I do remember from the plan and from the presentation. And we're here to field questions. Ms. Congress and staff are here, I believe, and I'm here as well.
As part of this process from Albany, the School in Need of Improvement process, the plan is presented to us, and we have to review and approve and verify to the state that we have done so. And then the process continues, obviously, BJM, according to the plan.
Yeah.
So that's why it's on the agenda. And any questions at this point? Anyone? Go ahead, Jim.
Did the plan, I didn't see, have any monetary effects?
This plan, it didn't have a budget associated with it.
There's a $25,000 grant that goes with the plan, and we use that for the position of Mary Ann Campbell as assistant to work out the staff development components and the development plan. And that goes to next year too.
Originally, the first time, wasn't it 65?
That's correct.
And how come we're lowered to 25?
Because the money was redistributed to the big fives, and small city school districts were reduced.
This is Mario. Well, this is not Mario Cuomo, but the other Cuomo. Right, being an advocate for all children in the state where we are now.
Yeah.
So I was just subbing for Brad. That's usually his line.
Yeah, they only kept half of the top money in Albany for administrators.
Only half.
Only half.
Only half. We'll just point that out. Yeah. Other comments. Go ahead, Elder.
So we're discussing our response now, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear. So Denise, can I ask you a question? In our response, or Marianne, Did we address any of these PBIS issues that I keep hearing about? Is that an actual component of what our submission was? And could you explain that to people and then talk about what we're intending to do about it?
We actually continue that in our current plan, and from the school quality review, it was one of our areas of strength. So what we did is we built on what we had already established, and then we're going to be doing some new training for people who are new to the building or didn't have the experience when we first did it all together about 3 years ago. So that is a component in the grant, and it will address both the emotional and how that impacts the instructional. So, yes, it's outlined in it.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions. We do need a motion. If we didn't have it before. Yeah, the motion is
To approve BJM's plan for city status removal.
and Chris second. Now, any other further questions regarding the motion? All in favor? And I believe that's going to be everyone, all 8 minus. Good, Judy? All right. So we'll move on. We have another item we can, I think, get out of the way before 7:30, and that's the sabbatic approval for the proposed 2011-2012 sabbatic. There are 4 of them. There are in your board Dropbox, and the proposals were there for your review. So I'll entertain a motion, then we can we'll answer any questions.
So moved. I approve the 4 proposals for sabbatics for either full or half year next year.
Thanks, Judy, and second by Seth. Any questions? Comments? All right, all in favor? That's everybody but Brad. And those opposed? Brad. It was easier than me saying 7 names. And so you got that, Karen? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So that does pass, so we will be doing 4 sabbaticals next year. So congratulations to those teachers. That's look like great projects.
Yes.
I really don't. Here we go. Really don't want to get into the central office reorg plan before the superintendent's report. So, can we?
Is your gentleman, your advocate here? Okay.
But we have the exciting policies to look at least discuss briefly. We can discuss that while we're waiting. Oh, we got it? Okay. So instead of doing policies, which are really not what we wanted to talk about first, we are going to go to the superintendent's report. So,
yes, sir, I'm going to invite Mr. Powers to come up and help me with this.
Want to talk about this a little bit?
Yes, we're going to say lunch. Thank you, Mr. Powers. You're probably wondering why we invited Mr. Powers on.
We're always happy to see Jared. I mean, this is
because we love giving out diplomas. Tonight we're here to recognize Mr. Clyde Chisholm, who is a former Ithaca High School student, and he would have graduated in the class of 1951. Correct? 1951. In the middle of his senior year, Mr. Chisholm had to enlist he enlisted in the Army, and he served as part of the Korean conflict until the ceasefire in 1953. On behalf of the Board of Education, if I may, and on behalf of the school district, we'd like to present this great man with the diploma tonight. Please come up and sit.
I just want to say, if it hadn't been for this gentleman, I wouldn't be here today.
And
This is Matt Brennan.
I'm not allowed to talk to the press, but I work for the Department of Labor. I'm a Veterans Employment Representative, and we try to look out for all of our branches. I'm a retired Marine, and there's not many men like Clyde left. It's an honor to be in his presence. He didn't have to do what he did. He voluntarily left. He was a great student, from what I understand, and he wanted to serve his country. And it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank him.
Honor's all mine.
Can we do photo ops? There you go.
There you go.
Take the opportunity.
Let's do something like this every day. All right.
The only thing I'd add, Mr. is the only thing better than the Marine is the IHS Marine.
And we should add that consistently, year after year, we have graduates that do enter the armed forces, not Marines, Army, Air Force. We really want to congratulate them. It's a consistent number.
Congratulations. Thank you. That's awesome.
We always hope that they graduate first, but we're very pleased that we're able to honor Mr. Chisholm tonight. So, Dr. Brown. Was that,
what do you say after that? Well, the chili was good on Saturday. How about that? Well, really, Denise here, we did enter into the chili cook-off yet again. And this year I understand that we didn't have our names on the ballot. Therefore, we didn't win. So we're winners in our own way. But so I want to congratulate the food service department. I hear the chili was outstanding. Yet again. The next board commendation ceremony will be on March 27th, and at that time we'll be having chili. All right. So we put the order in early, and so we'll have it on the 27th as part of the commendation ceremony. And that's all I have as part of the superintendent's report tonight.
Okay, Dr. Brown, and we're good, and I think we're going to go on and really get right into central office reorg.
I think I better stand up because some people may need to hear me. I think I know the board remembers, as part of the superintendent's transition plan, you asked me to listen and learn, and then take a close look at all parts of the organization, and then offer recommendations for instructional improvements and for structural improvements. So tonight I'm coming to you with a recommendation for some structural improvements that we think will help with our instructional improvements as well. And I have this image here. Also, when saying we would be making recommendations for organizational improvements, we said we would understand the work and establish what our needs were, and then build a structure to support the work in young people, versus attempting to try to fit work into an existing structure. And I wish for you to know that we've gone about this approach to a reorganization thinking about young people and what's best for the organization. And tonight, when we talk about the structure that we think is going to be best for us moving forward, we want you to not think about personalities of people, but think about the structure tonight. The personalities and the personnel issues we'll take care of in time, but tonight is more about the structure and what's going to be best for serving our young people from the central office level. You'll see in the central office plan, we're talking about central administrative zoning tonight. Okay, so what we're going after is an instructional leadership team. Gone are the days of an executive team. We have an executive team right now, 4 members and myself. We're going to be moving to an instructional leadership team. And that kind of team is going to look different. We're going to be looking for, we will have instructional leaders in all of the offices in our organization, in the central office. And so that's a bit of a shift for us. And we're going to be moving from the executive team notion to an instructional leadership team. Building-based support. We're looking to provide more autonomy to our building level principals, provide more central office support to schools. That's going to look different. How we work with principals, how we work with teachers from the central level will shift in some ways. But this plan, we hope, will provide more building-based support. We're transitioning quickly to allowing to allow more autonomy and flexibility for building level principals around staffing. How does one staff one's building? That call we're hoping to be made by the principal in the coming years, in this year and in the coming years, more so than by a central office administrator. Is that making sense? I don't know if I'm doing a great job of articulating, but we're putting more of the responsibility of FTEs into our principal's hands versus the administrators here in the central level. A distributed leadership model. When doing things like that with principals, they're becoming somewhat of a central level leader in ways themselves. For example, when allocating AIS staffing, for example, a building level principal has to understand what the district needs are as well as their individual school needs. And as we look at allocation of staffing across the district, the principals will be at the table with us central level leaders. So we're distributing the leadership and down into the buildings with the instructional leadership teams at buildings, and particularly with building level principals. And instructional coaching. Hopefully we will have a work session in the coming months around what is instructional coaching. Our job embedded approach to instructional development is going to be key in the budget process, and it's going to be key when you see this new approach to central level leadership. We're going to be making some reductions in the total number of people at the central level in support of building-based instructional coaches / leaders. And we'll talk more about that in the coming months, but this approach to the central level leadership work is going to be in support of the instructional coaching model that we'll be talking with you more about. So I'm going to go through, and I hope I have a graphic here that's going to help everyone understand what we're attempting to do. I've tried to do this in many, many different ways. And this is the one position that we must have in the district. I tried to get rid of that and change the title there, but it wouldn't let me. And some folks know I tried to change the title. But we have to have a superintendent for some reason. We're going to have that person. We currently have a chief information officer, and we've had a chief information officer for about 9 months right now. Our technology services and our accountability services are now all under one shop, and that's important. The information management systems and the work coming out of that department or that area right now is huge, and it will be even more important as we move forward, especially with the implementation of APPR. Our technology services, I hope the district is seeing some significant gains in what we're doing with our technology services, and so that work and those responsibilities are going to be now will continue to be with the chief information officer, which we have currently. These next two positions are two positions that we have currently too, but the titles are going to be different. And if I could stop here, at the central level, everyone is going to be doing something different next year. Folks will have a different title. Some will have different responsibilities. Some folks may not see themselves in a structure like this and may choose to not be here. Some folks may not be here for other reasons. So I'm here to tell you that everyone's going to be doing something different next year. And I'm sensitive to that. When going through this process and putting together a structure that's going to support teaching and learning in young people, we had wanted to understand that people will be changing, but not let that get in the way of what needs to happen. So again, this approach here is you're going to see some positions that sound much like what we have now, some that sound very different from what we have now. Some are just title changes, but you're going to see some very substantive changes as well. These next two positions are similar to some things that we have now. Chief Human Resource Officer, which is our human capital work, and with the labor management work, and what we're doing with APPR is huge. It's big work for us right now, and right now we have that currently sitting in one particular shop. Operations is the other place. What we do now with food services budget. Let me go back. Food services budget. Transportation, I forget what it was saying, but the operations pieces that we currently have will stay there. These are two new roles, Chief Elementary and Chief Secondary Schools Officers. One of the things that I've learned when doing my travels is that we lack consistency between schools, between classrooms even. We lack a true transition between our elementary schools and middle schools and high school. Well, we have some things, but it can be better. This approach to the work, I think, is going to help us improve. What is going to be here? These are instructional positions, and they're going to work closely with one another. Everything from our pre-K program through graduation coaching will fall under these two particular positions. This elementary person I see leading the efforts from pre-K through 5. Right now, I know and we can spend time talking about this after I present it, but I know we have some issues coming out of preschool into kindergarten. We have a lack of consistency there. We right now, this approach and having someone being in charge of that consistency among schools, within schools, and between pre-K and 5 is going to be huge for us going forward. Our work with curriculum assessment instruction is going to be key. Co-curricular offerings. The Dignity for All Students Act is another example of something that will be resting with these two instructional leaders that are going to be working as part of this instructional leadership team. And then finally we have, and I do love this title. I was told by a mentor that if you want something, name it. We want excellence. So we're going to create an excellence office, an excellence position or an office or an officer or whatever you want to call it, but we're going to go after excellence in a very transparent and open way. Two key initiatives for us right now. I've heard folks talk tonight about the Students with Disabilities Plan, Continuous Improvement Plan for Special Education, whatever we're calling, but the work we're going to do with special education is going to be big for us going forward. Professional development is going to be huge for us going forward. Having a person connected to both of those and leading both of those efforts is going to be big. We're working now to provide a strand approach to opportunities next year around curriculum and assessment, co-teaching and differentiated instruction, and critical thinking. This person is going to be point for those professional development opportunities. Also being point for our special education offerings and programs, there's an automatic connection here. We talk about special education being a general education issue as much as it is special education. This person is hopefully going to help bridge those gaps and create some consistency. Also there, the health and well-being pieces of the organization will be under this person's purview. So that's it, and I'll bring up all the responsibilities here in just a second. It's a lot of work. Again, we're moving away from the executive team notion, sort of flattening things a bit, creating a few new positions there. We're eliminating some positions at the central level. This approach to the work will not cost any more money. There will actually be some savings when we do this. This approach right now, the savings we will achieve, we're going to be pushing into our instructional coaching model. And we'll talk more about that when we present the budget to you at the next meeting, March 13th. But again, with instructional coaching, instructional leadership, or distributed leadership model is in more building-based support. So I love this slide. This is my favorite slide. Everything we do is connected to these key levels. We think about the teaching learning framework, the PLC work, and our human capital efforts. I hope that when you see the budget in 2 weeks, as you see this plan, you see us supporting these key levels. I will tell you that we spent the last year and some change at the 1.0 version of each one of these things. We're quickly transitioning to the 2.0 version with many of these things. Our teaching and learning framework is becoming more complex. It's becoming better. What we're doing in our classrooms is going to be better every day, and it's going to continue to move. The PLC work, we're going to be transitioning from just looking at numbers and getting structures in place to have people just sit down at the table during a common time to actually looking at student work and making decisions in real-time shifts and teaching and learning based on what we see as far as the work. That's a huge shift when it comes to PLC work, moving from just data and spreadsheets and sitting down together to looking at student work to make some real-time shifts. And our human capital office, and that's why I want to spend a little bit more time with you. As this work gets more complex for us as an organization, as we really strive for excellence, and we're doing things like a continuous improvement plan for special education, in which those 10 findings and recommendations of out there in front of everyone else I've seen, every other plan I've seen. When we start doing things like that as an organization, when we say we're going to reorganize central office in ways to support the work, more so than just the people who've been in existing structures, I mean, those are a huge shift for us. To do those things, we need to be thinking about how do we then grow our own people. We have some principalships that are going to be open, we know, in the coming months. We're going to have some central office positions that are going to be coming open in the coming months. We're hard pressed right now to point to individuals within the organization and say that's a sure fit. That person is ready to step into their role, because we have no true grow your own program. In addition to the central office reorganization plan, I wanted to present to you what we're thinking about as far as a grow your own program. We have some folks from Columbia University contact us, one of the best principal prep programs in the nation. Contact us because they recognize some of the complex work and impressive work that we're engaging in. The program at Columbia University is a 14-month program which includes an internship. A 14-month program that includes an internship and includes a final project. And I think the final project for the last 4 or 5 years has been to design a school of the future. And that was it. And students were to present their best thinking around what a school would look like if they could build one without any resource constraints or any bureaucratic constraints. I would love to do that too, but that was the final project, and I've seen some of those projects, and they've been very impressive. But the kind of thinking coming out of this particular university and this particular principal prep program is the kind of thinking that I think we as an organization is embracing right now as we are seeking to achieve excellence. We're hoping to partner with you, and we're still working through some details. We need to have an MOU with them, and we need to have an MOU with the Teachers Association. But once we have those things settled, we're hoping to provide Columbia University with 4 or 5 folks in my district each year. And from those, they'll go through the program there in the summers, and they'll come back and be here on site with an internship coach from Columbia University, working with teachers and administrators doing the work. We see this as being our Grow Your Own program. And with this program, we're also expecting the folks that go through it as part of our program committing back to the district. To 4 years, I think, is what we're looking at. So committing back to the district to be here and embrace and be a part of the work for 4 years. Okay, so I put a lot out there right now. I'm looking forward to engaging in some conversations. Like you talk about the central office organization, and then how we're going to continue to build capacity to fill those roles and other roles with very competent and impressive and dynamic leaders.
That was the comments and questions at this point, correct?
It was a lot, I know.
And I will point out this is a discussion and decision, so we can discuss for a bit, but then eventually I would like a motion, and we will.
Rob, can I
go ahead.
Just, I guess, start the conversation by putting a motion out there that we adopt the superintendent's plan.
I'll second. So we can discuss, yeah.
Right, second. Seconded and motioned and seconded. I appreciate that. Now, certainly feel free to dig in.
Dig in?
I saw Elder first, so.
Oh, okay.
He does. The young lady in the purple windbreaker, what is your name?
I'm in purple, but I'm not sure that I'm so young.
Ruth.
Ruth.
Ruth made the quintessential point this evening when she asked us to make sure that things we're doing involve classrooms. I would hope that after hearing Dr. Brown's presentation, that the folks in this room would understand that that is exactly what this is about. It has occurred to many of us on our time on the board that we do quite a bit of work, and we expend quite a bit of money, time, energy, and resources. And now we're being expressly intentional about moving that to classrooms. Most of us have spent a significant amount of time in classrooms this year and in previous years, and we're watching and we're learning. The teachers, if we're going to ask them to do the work that we want them to do, need the time, the tools, and the training to make it happen. Right, one teacher made a joke with me. She's going to get a bumper sticker that says 39 minutes, which is in effect after you get the male children to sit down all the amount of time you have to do your thing. We're also saying to teachers, well, this year you're going to do it with 22 kids. Next year you're going to do it with 24 kids. And next year you might have to do it with 27 kids. So to be honest in any way, shape, or form about getting the results we want and for excellence for all of our students, whether they're wealthy students whose parents feel they have to spend additional money in summer programs and additional help because they're not sure what we're doing in classrooms, or whether it's students who are struggling, whose parents think that their job is to get them dressed, shuffle them out, and the school is going to take care of it. Right? On both ends of the spectrum, we can do better. This is our best thinking about how we can shift our entire structure so we can drive this opportunity to classrooms. So, Dr. Brown, thank you. I'm also going to reiterate that I understand this is about real people. I appreciate you saying that. There are going to be real lives affected here. There are going to be real position shifts. But ultimately, we're standing up for children tonight.
Judy, go ahead.
My real heart lies in the middle school. And I looked, and it was elementary and secondary. And I'd like from you a commitment that grades 6, 7, and 8 will be strongly studied, provided for, and probably studied to see why there is such drop off entering 9th grade. What is happening in the middle school? And I'd like a commitment to that part.
I'm committed to that. And I think the beauty of having the elementary person and the secondary person working so closely together will allow for some more support at the middle school level as well. So there'll be consistency in programming offering. Yeah, so yes, you have my commitment. And when I think secondary, I'm thinking as much middle school as I am thinking a high school.
Okay, I just...
Post-elementary.
Post-elementary.
Go ahead, Rob. You know, curious how many of our principals who've had an opportunity to speak with the plan about, I mean, if I understand distributed leadership, I call it flattening.
Yeah.
We're giving them more, but we're also asking more as far as accountability and the tasks that we're going to ask them to do. I'm just curious to what degree you've had an opportunity to speak with your different building leaders.
I've listened to them for a year as they beg for the things that I've spoken to tonight. Yes, and I put this plan in front of them as well, and it has resonated with each of them as they see themselves working in a plan and being successful in an organization like this. Yes, they know that they're going to have more ownership for what happens in their building. I think the state's telling them that. They're going to be held accountable for every child in their building. What we've done as an organization is, well, you're going to be held accountable for them, but I'm going to hold the staffing. I'm going to be accountable for the staffing, or I'm going to control this in your building. That, in ways, is a broken model. So we're going to give them much more control. It's going to be what I'm calling defined autonomy. We're going to put some banks on the river, but we're going to let them play quite a bit. And the collaboration between the central level and the principal is going to be, it has been fun, and I'm hoping it will continue to be fun. But they're going to have much more say in what happens within their walls. And you'll see that as part of the budget process. Just to foreshadow a bit, we won't present to you special plans based on student services or curriculum instruction or certain departments at the central level. We may have individual schools speak to you about how they're shifting resources in their individual buildings and how the budget is reflecting that. So that's going to be a fundamental shift for us as well.
I'll ask that. Well, go ahead, Judy.
Years ago, in our history, we had autonomous schools, particularly elementary schools, that did, quote, their own thing. And so that when they entered middle school, there were kids with all different backgrounds, subjects, and so forth. How are you going to assure that we have common goals from?
And that's a key part of the instructional leadership team, but particularly the elementary and secondary person. When we say define autonomy, when we speak about a common approach to reading program, we mean a common approach to reading programs or mathematics. And we have committees and work that's happening throughout the district right now to ensure we're too small to have that kind of autonomy right now. And we're too transient also to have that kind of autonomy. If we say we know what's best for teaching and learning, then why isn't it what's best in every school? So we will have that baseline of approaches to the work, but every school should be different in some ways. I mean, I heard LACF be proud tonight about solar panels. I don't know if IHS would want those solar panels on them. I mean, that kind of a difference, we want that, but there's some things that we have to be consistent with as well. Yeah, does that answer your
Yes,
question?
I'm just very concerned because of the two committees, the reading and the math, that are setting up standards based on core curriculum, and I'd like to see that go on.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, Seth.
You talked about the constellation of chiefs that will be around you, and that role of superintendent wasn't defined in this presentation tonight. Besides wearing fancy suits and being in buildings tomorrow, talk about your role and what you're going to be doing. You know,
I haven't thought much more about it since after that. But no. Is there something else to this job?
If I could, Seth leads me to the question I had. You know, Dr. Brown, we've been pretty used to the superintendent assistant superintendent model. I mean, that's kind of the way it's been. So, talk to me about, you know, how does going from executive team model to this model, how does that change your relationship? Or, you know, we're going to have to probably flesh that out a little bit so we have a better idea of how this works.
Yeah, I would love to change my title to learning leader. because I like to think that I work with teachers in classrooms as much as I work with an assistant superintendent type. And if that's the model going forward, and I'm hoping that we saw that. I mean, I played with various iterations of this, and one in which superintendent was at the top, like every other org chart in the country, to put myself sort of in the middle and sort of get lost. If I'm a collaborative leader like I wish to be, then I'm connecting with all of those chiefs, which is the instructional leadership team, which is going to be in buildings most of the time. I hope this is a ghost town here, and that the folks you saw represented in that chart are spending the majority of their time in buildings like myself. But that's going to be a shift for us also. So we're working with educators in classrooms, building level principals, attending PLC meetings. So I see myself doing the same things that the other leaders in that chart is doing also. I would love to get out and teach some classes. So it is going to be a different approach. Right now, we're transitioning. I mean, I'm still just a year into it, and I see myself much more as an administrator more so than a learning leader at this point. But hopefully that'll start to shift as we push more support back down into the building. Is that making some sense?
Yeah, can you give me a little bit more on as far as the interaction between that role as superintendent and the chiefs? I mean,
sure.
what
I got you.
You know, as right now, if there's a puddle outside, everyone's calling you. You know, there's this kind of direct connection.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about, you know, what it looks like with that model that you're presenting?
Sure.
As far as your role and what you do, don't do, and stuff like that.
I will start with the direct reports for me now to be the chief officers here. Those folks will be my direct reports. Right now I have building level principals reporting to me and some other iterations, some other folks will report to me. So that would be my team that meets every Monday, and we talk about things and we set the plan for the district. I hope that it was very clear, there was a clear line of sight with who is responsible for what. So if there's an elementary issue, right now oftentimes I get those calls. Those calls would now go to the chief elementary officer. If it's something around a parent wanted a child switched out of the classroom and the principal didn't agree, and they call me. Now that call goes to the chief elementary person who's probably already in that building having some conversation about that issue. Scheduling issues I've gotten calls about. Mr. Powers knows this. Before they call Mr. Powers. Now I'm hoping that call will go to Mr. Powers and then potentially to the secondary person. And if there's a final call to be made, then it will come to me. So I see us not putting in levels of bureaucracy, but having some clear lines of sight and areas of responsibility, but all of us still being on the same page as far as how we respond to the work. Is that getting a little closer to it?
Yeah, and one thing is you've been a pretty dynamic leader in your time here. Is the expectation that group of chiefs around you would share that same type of in the community dynamic type leadership, or how do you see their role as leading initiatives or taking on, you know, big projects or tasks or things like that? Is it you know, are you going to still be the front person as superintendent, or is the expectation that, you know, the chief secondary officer would you know, carry a project forward and be the spokesperson and
we will be asking, that's going to be the first question for folks is, are you all in? And are you committed to being a part of this community? And being at the BJ Young events on Saturday morning or the high school basketball game on Friday. Those are things that this community expects from its instructional leaders. Whether you agree with that or not, they expect it. And I've embraced it because I like doing those things in the community. So I'm hoping that the folks that you saw represented here will be a part of the community in those ways, but also be another mouthpiece for me. I've done, I think we're up to 87 keynotes in 12 months. I'm hoping that I can share some of those things with some folks that are on there, and they will be saying the same things I'm saying, and say them in ways that are convincing to folks and helping people understand the approach to the work. And when challenged, like I get challenged oftentimes, they're able to respond as to why we're doing this. So those are the kind of folks that we're looking for. And I start with, are you all in? Because this work, my wife will tell you, she's probably watching on text messaging me right now, how long is this meeting going to last? This is long, these are long hours. We're working these are 14, 15-hour days, and Jared knows this well, at a minimum. We work 70, 80 hours a week. So the folks, to do what we're attempting to do over the next 3 years, it's going to take our leaders, instructional leaders on this chart, to be all in that way, whether you like it or not. My wife and Pat, we're having this conversation every day. Some days you like it, some days you doesn't, but this is what the community is expecting from our instructional leaders.
Oh yeah, I'm intrigued by what you're saying about handing kind of power back to principals. I've served on my school site council for just about a year now, and I think it's often a question that comes up, well, we have all these great discussions, but what actually can we do about it? So I think that handing power back to the schools and trusting our students and staff and building leaders to make the right decisions is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, us versus them, we're working hard. We have a long ways to go. I've heard often, well, we can't do that because of you, or they are the ones who are keeping us from putting in place this program. And this is our next attempt to break down those silos yet again.
Good. So, one thing that's different here is and you talked about it a little bit, and I wonder if you could explain it, your thinking on it a little more, is this joining of the pre-K in the pre-K programs into our elementary school programs, and the, just the thinking behind that.
Sure. And I will say it again publicly. We're looking to grow and enhance our preschool offerings, period. From my perspective, to do that, we need to have some more consistency between pre-K and kindergarten and first grade and amongst programs. Having a point person that's in charge of elementary offering or elementary programming, also oversee preschool, it's going to be, from my perspective, it's going to be big. There are other models like this. This model is not just me sitting down. There are other models across the country and some very progressive and successful school districts that are doing just this. Having building level principals evaluate and speak with be in preschool classrooms and have a conversation with preschool teachers is something we haven't done enough of yet. Now, building level principals will be evaluating, having more conversation with the preschool teachers, as well as the elementary officer. So that consistency is something that we're hoping to achieve with having one person in charge of the entire elementary program. Versus right now we built that was some of the feedback. Much of the feedback I received when talking to elementary folks is that we have silos between preschools and our regular elementary program.
Other question, Dr. Brown, is there an example of how the FTE usage that you talked about would play out? Is there something you can share with us about how that may work and why it would be beneficial to return specifically back to building?
Yeah, I don't want to take some thunder from Mr. Powers. I know he's been thinking about how to use FTEs more creatively in his field or innovative ways. So I won't do that. So, because he's probably looking over at me like, please don't share what I'm thinking about doing. So an example of an elementary building. Right now, we at the central level, we're allocating the FTE as far as AIS and special education. Right now, the building level principal may look to have an instructional coach for literacy in their individual building, and may wish to use their AIS staffing to do so. That may be that's going to be a shift for us right now. Or maybe have a math coach, whereas now they have maybe an AIS teacher or several AIS teachers. They're doing some things that aren't math. But if looking at their data, they see that they have need for mathematics instructional coaching. They would have the autonomy to speak with other central leaders to make that shift in their particular building, which will have some ripple effects for the other elementary schools. That's also why we have a chief elementary officer, and that's why we often meet bi-weekly to talk about staffing in our individual buildings. So I know many of these conversations are happening with our principals right now, and I know they haven't talked to their site-based councils or their staff, so I'm trying not to take it in some, so I'm trying to give a very generic. I didn't offend anyone, right? I didn't take, so yeah, does that help you some though, Mr. Harris?
Yes, thank you.
You're going to start offending people in Lavelle, I think, Lavelle, out in the public, we hear a lot around budget time that, don't cut programming, cut administration. We won't put it to people, but administration. We'll find out in the budget, how this will all put together. Are we looking? This is a different model, different people in different places. Are we looking at a flat administration number? Are we looking at perhaps this is trying to do the job in a different way, in a better way, but with less people?
Sure.
Do you want to get into that? I mean,
I can, and if I can say very clearly that this is not a budget conversation. I've seen superintendents for years now make shifts at the central level or at the building level and frame it around the budget season. And from my perspective, that's cowardly. If this is what we think is best for teaching and learning, we do this outside of the budget process. Having said that, but we are doing this outside of the budget process because this is what we need to do. Where's Margaret? We are hoping to save dollars with this approach to the work. There are going to be fewer administrators, therefore we're going to be saving dollars. But the dollars that we're saving, the majority of those dollars we're pushing back into the instructional coaching model.
I want to pick up on something that Aviv said about trust. Do you find now that you've been here a year that there is more trust between the central administration or whatever you want to call it and the building principals and the teachers? Or do we still have a lot of work to do? For this to work, there has to be trust.
Sure.
That's been an issue in this district.
I can give examples. For me to make that call, obviously I'm going to say it because I'm a positive person, so I will say yes. But I will give you examples of some things that have happened, and I'll let you judge. We worked with the ITA to develop our attempt at the APPR rubric. I think it's an outstanding document. I remember walking in and I said, you tell me what you want to do, and you do it. And they spent a weekend, some of the best teachers I've ever been around, working on what would be some examples for that document. And they gave it back to me, and I spent my time just organizing it and formatting and not changing anything. That took a level of trust from my seat, and I'm hoping it took a level of trust from them to think that I wouldn't change it once they gave it back to me. That's one example. With building level principals, we told them to go out and give us your best thinking around teaching and learning in your building and what would it cost you. That's us trusting building level principals to come back with a proposal, and them trusting that they would spend hours putting together a proposal and speaking with site-based councils and teachers, and we wouldn't blow it up when it came back. So those are some examples of how we're working together now. I think it's us being more trustful. I know we have a long way to go, but I see some things happening that are positive.
But there's less they and us.
I still hear people slip back into it.
Yeah, I do too, but I mean...
I think it's less they and us, but I won't be comfortable. I won't be happy until I'm not hearing the district anymore.
Okay.
Every day I hear people refer to the district as the district or me as the district, and I struggle with that every time. So when people start saying we, or that's a decision that we made, or I like our structure, or that I think we've achieved kind of excellence there. I'm inspired.
One of the stuff on this I was hoping a student would weigh in. Andrew, go ahead.
I was just wondering, you mentioned that you were going to work on, that this model would help with the transition between pre-K, kindergarten, 5th and 6th, and 8th and 9th. Is that more than just leveling the field for the students, or is it just making sure that everyone has the same education going into each grade?
So I don't necessarily understand leveling the field, but I do understand the consistency. Yes, it is about consistency, and I think I know in the special education continuous improvement plan we talk about transition days and having more of those. We're looking to have an individualized plan for every child, and hopefully during these transition meetings, and especially with two key folks leading that work, a secondary and elementary person, that we'll have an individual conversation about every child with a picture and having their student profile. We have instructional management systems and tools now, electronic tools, that are going to allow us to pull up every child in their picture and their historical view of what happened for them in the Ithaca City School District. That's huge for us. Now having people at the table to have conversations about what we can do better for that individual child is going to be key. So I do see this model helping us a lot because these folks will be at the table.
Right, we're looking for every student to know what the opportunities may be at that next level, and also the expectations. And too often I think it's, well, when I came to the district it was, nobody, I didn't know that. How come you guys know that and I don't know that? So trying to make it consistent, across all elementary schools, and certainly the transition from, Boynton to the high school. The high school needs to know a ton about those 9th graders when they're coming in, and not be surprised with, wow, boy, you're not at the language arts level that we thought you should be, and having a disconnect, and that's what I think we're trying to
And I hope maybe you see that that's you forcing that on us. You're expecting iPads and you to customize your apps here. That's very different from the Mario Brothers games that I grew up with, where everyone plays the same game. You're expecting Halo, and it adapts to your needs based on what you want. We have to adapt to your needs, and that is going to require us to know what you need and what's going to be your program versus us having a cookie cutter approach or leveling the field for everyone. I think that's what you're looking for.
What's up?
I don't want to be negative about this or anything, but I also don't want to be surprised by the optimistic approach that you're taking here. And it's clear that one of the things we're investing heavily in is this idea of a coaching model, colleagues coaching each other's work and to kind of continue to improve. What are the challenges we face in adopting that model? I mean, where can it go wrong? And you know, if we're going down the coaching road, you know, I at least want to be prepared to, if we start seeing, you know, some trouble, what do we have to look out for so we don't fall into that hole or make those mistakes?
And that's not being negative, that's being thoughtful. I've developed an instructional coaching model, and I will tell you that the biggest issue is around trust. First, between teacher and teacher. So if I'm an instructional coach and I'm coming into your classroom, do I have issues? and that's going to be the first battle. Instructional coaches are going to be working with our best teachers and some who are struggling and helping every teacher get better and working with one another to get better. That's a good instructional coaching model. So we're going to have that initial hurdle to get over. Folks not wanting an instructional coach to come in and help them teach reading better or learn how to use the iPad differently in their classroom. That's going to be one. The relationship between the building level leader and instructional coaches, there are going to be things that teachers share with one another that they aren't going to want shared with the principal. If folks start to look at our instructional coaches as quality administrators, it's going to be dead in the water. They aren't. They're colleagues. We're all in this together. I hope we get to a point where people see administrators as instructional coaches, and we can share, we can struggle together, we can grow together. So this trust issue and understanding what learning and growing together is going to look like versus this judging mentality that I think is pervasive right now for us. And APPR and the state isn't helping us with this either, just to be honest with you. So here we are trying to beat our heads against the wall and implement a model in which we say the answers in the room are going to grow together and learn together, and yet we're asked to judge one another based on 100-point scales. So this is going to be huge work for us as we implement an instructional model in New York State with some of the constraints we have, but I think we have the people that can do it, but it's going to be tough. And I'm saying as superintendent now, I have years of lessons learned when it comes to instructional coaching models. And there are models out there now that have been up and running for 5 to 8 years that are producing outstanding achievement level for all young people. And you'll have teachers saying that this is the best thing that ever happened. So I've seen that, and we're going to be modeling ours after that, but also we're going to have to be unique here because we have different constraints from some of these other places.
Can I ask a flip side of that question? So there are teachers in this room who I've watched in action that I know could have been used in other rooms that I've seen. That's all I'm going to say. How are we going to incentivize those teachers? What's going to be on the table for those teachers to leave their children and actually play this role? So what's the reverse side of that? I know if I had been teaching for 15 years and developed a flow, and I like my kids, I like my buildings, I'm thinking you're going to be hard pressed to actually get me to give those children up so I can do this thing across town. So how are we going to negotiate even that side, which is a relatively positive problem to have?
What I know about those master teachers that you're describing is that they want to grow more than anyone else. And the opportunity to be in every classroom at the elementary level or every classroom at the secondary level and learning from other great educators is going to incentivize them to want to, for a time, leave their classroom to go do that work. And as we go about the design process for this model, one of the things we may put on the table is that instructional coaches are going to go back into the classroom after serving in that role for 2 to 3 years. The best models have that approach to it. So we're not telling a master teacher, well, you're going to come out of the classroom, and you're never going to go back. I'm struggling with that right now. If I could go back, I would. If I could go back now, I would go back to a classroom. But so I'm hoping that we can have those conversations with people about the opportunity to grow and work with other educators, and that would be an incentive for them also. Then have the opportunity to affect an entire district and cross-pollinate best practices is going to be huge from my perspective. I want that to happen. And then a lot of individual conversations and knocking on doors and hopefully charming people into doing this work that's going to be important for us. Well, and I think I've gotten a few already signed up.
What's the timeline here?
We wish to fine-tune some of the job descriptions, and we know the job descriptions aren't going to be set in stone. We have some things that we're comfortable with advertising with, but we know as we deal with some of the personnel issues and labor management issues that we may have to make some shifts with some of the job descriptions. But we want to put our best thinking around the job description out after the March 13th board meeting, in which we roll out the budget. So in the next few weeks, we're hoping to start to advertise for some of the open roles. We want to immediately begin to operate in this way, as far as how we work with principals, what we expect from our building level leaders, how we work at the central level as far as when we need, what we talk about when we need, and so forth. So some of this is already happening, but we really want to start advertising around March 13th.
Other comments? Pat, Chris?
I would like to make a comment. I very much, as a board member and community member, appreciate your framing this in terms of what's best educationally for children, and I think teachers and administrators within the district, rather than saying this is a budget issue, so we're cutting to save money. And I would just like to, I've been putting this presentation together in my mind with the presentations we've had over the last several board meetings. The presentation on special education, the presentation on math instruction, presentation on where we stand in the district, disparities among different groups of children, and how all of this ties in together, and this is a very holistic picture you're creating. I've been in this district almost 20 years now. This is a community that prides itself on great progressivism and fears change more than any other group of individuals that I have ever encountered in all of my travels. And
conservative liberals.
And this is different. And I appreciate the collective, open, communicative way that you have been presenting information to the community. And I just want to say that I am excited about this. I hear from teachers who feel beleaguered by parental pressure, state pressure. Is the district supporting us? I hear from parents who are feeling that their kids are not getting what they should get from the schools. When is positive change going to come? And I am very hopeful that this is a very positive step forward.
Thank you. And again, being sensitive, because this has changed for a lot of folks. There are folks who will do something very different next year, who did a great job in the roles they were in before. And that first picture was purposeful. We've been attempting to jam a square peg into a round hole. We haven't been organized from our perspective to deliver on the things that we say we believe in. And I hope this approach is going to be done.
Chris, you want to weigh in?
It's hard to follow Pat what she just said.
You don't have
to. But I think looking at this with the collaboration piece plus the hierarchy of structure piece is admirable. But not to sound cynical, that trust is going to be the biggest factor here. It can work, and I trust and I believe in the people we have in this room. I believe in you, and I believe in our students. But if we don't trust and we don't try to move forward together, we'll be sitting at this table talking about why it didn't work. So I just want to put that out there.
I wrote about that today in my blog post. Culture can eat strategy for breakfast. If we don't change the culture, then this strategy is going to be eaten up. Just like every other plan we put together. The special education plan, that's just the best document in the country until we change the culture. And then we really will help our young people. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Jay, if you wish.
I support the change. I think it's an alignment of our personnel towards what they're being asked to do and what we're trying to do. I think that the current model has built areas of responsibility that don't allow any effective collaboration, and it makes it difficult to do things across schools, across the district. And so by changing, I think that doing something like this is necessary to produce change, to at the top redraw responsibilities and hold those people accountable for those new responsibilities, so that things can work more across the district and across the schools. And I think it's the right thing to be doing.
Anyone else, Brad? Anything else? Any other comments? Students?
Just want to make a comment. Young man who asked a very insightful question about leveling the playing field. I just want to remind the group here of what we saw when we made that initial trip down to the Albemarle. It's going to be Marley to me forever. School district, when we watched Dr. Brown's building leaders and teachers in action. And then, again, this was a very profound moment for me, and I want to share it with you. So we walked into one class where a young teacher was teaching English. And from what I understood, each student was sitting there with a device in their hand. And the device was allowing the student to access the material. I believe it was a test of the urban bill. They were accessing the material at their level.
I thought it was the Elliott book.
No, way too deep for me. I would have walked out. Right, so imagine you and your colleagues there being in a classroom in which you on your device are accessing the material at your level. It allows you to contribute at your level. We heard some students who, in the ordinary classroom setting, who might not have felt confident enough or have the esteem, or felt they had mastered the material enough to actually speak up, right? Now, this is, I'm going to use some colloquialisms here, but there was a student who was actually reading it in French. And there was some other students who had the Brooklyn version, right? And those kids were contributing in ways that I'm not going to say shook me, but it was something to see. Those typical kids who would be disconnected, if not outright rebellious, sitting in the back row, were actually engaged because they were being allowed to participate in a meaningful way, given whatever knowledge they come with. They were street smart. Kids who work in agricultural settings, they were participants. They could wrap their minds around what was being said because it was being presented to them. If we can come close to approximating that here, I will take that any day over a class of which we call an honors class, which we know is so heterogeneous that the people in the class might not be following anything. So you're still going to have two superstars up in the front running the show.
Anything else? We do have a motion on the table. All in favor of motion as it was presented? I believe that is everyone. Carries. We will be looking forward to a changed organizational model. Dr. Brown. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we take 5 minutes before we dive into 45 minutes of policy discussion?
No, that's not.
I was going to escape that.
We will take 5 as a request, and we will then finish up.
I have no idea.
We have a quorum, and we have a quorum. I'm looking forward to the policy committee helping me out here with these policies. Pat?
But everybody's still out in the hall, right?
But Pat, who's going to state the changes and move on? Or are you going to read?
This is, Pat, if you enlighten me, but these are first readings of these policies?
Yes, these are first readings. If people would want to open the attachment policy review PDF, so as the board and some of our regulars may be aware, the policy committee is committed to an ongoing, comprehensive update, overhaul, revision of our school board policies, and along the lines recommended by NYSBA, New York State School Boards Association, which will rid our policies of inconsistencies, anachronisms, and failures to comply with current state law, all of which we think are good. So the policy committee met a couple of weeks ago, and these go in series, zeros, 1000s, 2000s, and what you have in your Dropbox tonight is a portion of the 2000 level suggested revisions for the first reading, because Sean was frankly worried about giving you all the 2000 policies at once. There are more to come.
Obviously, I had no confidence in our ability to, but anyway, yeah, exactly. Keep going.
We thought you'd be derogatory about so many policies that you'd have to consider all at once.
And he also picked easier.
Okay, so the first one is school board legal status. This is a new policy for the school board to consider, and it revises and expands on a policy that's already on the books. It is basically stating that any decision made by the board is a decision by the board as a whole, and no individual board member going off and saying something is a legally binding decision by the board. And it kind of sets out our responsibilities, references some education law, and is pretty generic. But we are certainly inviting review and comment before a final reading. We didn't, I don't think, Judy, I don't think we had any suggestions for modification of this one. And then
most of these are boilerplate,
yes,
Pat, correct?
Pretty much.
Pat, do you want to go down through and move in and motion each one individually? Do you want to do them? So just do that individually?
I'm moving this for what, consideration?
Yes.
Discussion? Move for discussion?
Yep.
For
voting at the
Consideration.
next meeting.
Yeah,
We
For the
vote,
next
right,
meeting.
we vote at the next meeting, but I need a motion and a second.
Can I ask you a question, Pat?
Mm-hmm.
So at the top, there's this required local notice on the upper right.
Yes, this is,
What's it about?
the required is
Well, that's not hit.
right. This is something that usually notice is a notification that we should be looking for something to come down in the future. Local this is a recommended policy. It is not something we're required to have by law, but NISBA thinks it is a good thing to have. I don't think it changes how we operate in any way.
So some of these we might see required.
We might see required.
I got that. Local would mean what exactly?
Local
No, that
means
it's
we
not.
had it before. It's a local policy to us.
Can we have?
Well, this is a new policy, but we've had some form of it in another
Yeah, it's not
policy.
that. Yeah. And notice means
It's good to have.
It's.
Sometimes I'm not exactly sure what they mean by notice.
Okay.
I have to admit,
It's okay.
not the chair of the committee.
I'm okay with this one, but
Sean lives and breathes this stuff.
So do you.
But
There's only one person.
we need to step up when others aren't here, Pat, so we appreciate
You're doing
that.
this.
You're doing a great job, but, and again, just remind me, parliamentarian Brad,
We move it, we table it for a second reading.
right, do we vote to table?
Sure.
Was she seconded?
I don't know, did she move it?
It was moved and seconded, we consider it moved and seconded.
We're bringing forward for the second reading in the next meeting.
Right, but it's, do we vote to table? No. Yeah, I didn't, just wanted to be clear.
Our policy is that they're 2 readings.
That's our policy.
But Sean would like to have corrections made before the next, if you have comments, so that he can look at them, or we all would like them. We would like you to read them before the next meeting. How's that?
Before the next policy meeting, or before the next board meeting. What's your
Well,
suggestion?
our next policy meeting is this week, so.
Thursday.
So you
Yeah.
need your comments by Thursday.
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah.
And we've had the opportunity to read them
Yeah.
over the weekend.
Okay, send them to Kira then.
Okay.
Yeah. The only one that's totally required is 2160.
Wait,
We're not there
we'll
yet.
get there. Yeah, let's go in order. I can't handle it if you jump around.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pat, do that.
Okay. So 2120 covers school board elections.
Pat is moving.
I move to.
Second.
Second by Brad, go ahead. Now we can tell me all about it.
It's basically setting out our school board election policies as currently followed in accordance with the New York State calendar and New York State law. There is an attachment 2120.2 that includes voting procedures. I believe, Kira, that Sean raised the question of the definition of eligibility for voting, and
That's not in here.
under voting
For
procedures,
A.
a person shall be entitled to vote in any school district and in all matters placed upon the official ballot if such person is 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's the law.
You checked on that?
Linda Bax got back to me about that. I can show you what her reply was.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just following New York State law. It's not something we can really modify.
That's good to me.
And
Table till next meeting, and then on to the next would be
Can I
voting.
ask, just what we've got here, I mean, it's archaic. It's talking about a voting machine. I thought we all got rid of voting machines.
Well, define machine. I mean, what is, we vote in what now?
I don't enter a voting machine anymore.
Well, some, I think, still do.
We don't use any Oneater.
Yeah, that could be, some better wording could be found for that.
Yeah.
Well,
We slide our ballot into an electronic thing, right?
Voting
Apparatus.
no, we do enter a kind of voting booth where we fill out our
I'm just asking, this is already outdated.
voting kiosk. Okay, so Kira, could you just make a note that we will discuss the wording of voting machine and maybe check with NISBA on that
I'll
to
ask
see
her tomorrow.
if there's
Yeah,
some preferred
I bet they
wording.
got better wording. They must, all across the state this has changed. They must have new verbiage there.
I would think.
And then there's also provision on absentee ballots. And that's
Now you're on voting procedures?
the procedures. 2120 and 2120.2 kind of go together.
Okay. So you move them both, okay, all right. Fine.
And then 2121, board member qualifications.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this one straight. This is just so easy. Go ahead, Pat.
She's gonna make a motion.
Wow,
Make
you
a
guys
motion?
get the laugh.
I make a motion.
Chris seconded.
Okay, so we are actually going to set qualifications for members of the school board.
Doesn't say we have to be able to read and write well.
Man,
I'm up to
great.
20 letters, so.
I heard breathing was a good thing.
If you have any modifications to this, please let us know.
Again, this
The
is
age of the iPad, is it essential that I know either?
No, it's not required, it's just a note.
Sad.
Must be in a better resume. Must have been. May not read.
Is there a policy for board member disqualifications?
Oh.
2140.
Well, that's throwing you off. This is disqualification before you even think about running for the board.
I think that kind of
Membership
takes
and
care of
fraternity?
itself.
Is
You're
question,
trying to make sense.
Go ahead, Jim.
is number 6, that says may not be a current employee of the school board.
Right,
Do you
Kira
think-
can't run.
Well,
Oh, school district.
That's what I wondered.
We only have one employee.
That must mean district.
Must mean
Oh,
district.
district, yeah.
Okay.
Current employee of the school
That's what I wondered, if it meant district or...
Yeah, it does.
It means district.
Because
Yeah,
teachers
that-
can.
You can't work for the district and be on the school board.
Right.
Yeah. It must be district.
This is the boilerplate they sent us.
This is from,
Interesting
this is
point.
from State Ed.
They don't edit very well.
Or the education law.
Illinois.
Yeah.
So do you have a way to write back to somebody and?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Here we'll check on the wording of number 6.
And
What is number
clarification.
7?
I incompatible is pretty big.
Incompatible public office.
Well, Judy and I just talked, I'm gonna ask him about that one as well.
Okay, so you'll get more information on that. And we can circulate that?
Well, you meet on the same night? I mean, what the,
She usually sends me a response with several different answers, all combined, so I'll just forward that on to everyone. so
Good.
they see it.
That would be helpful.
Are we done with
We
that
have
one?
another one? Okay, 2140, move,
Just replace something.
Removal. Pat moved, Judy will second.
Second.
Go ahead, Pat.
so this is removal from office of a current board member.
Well, what is our current policy?
Yeah, I don't know.
It reads like this.
Yeah,
does?
pretty much.
Really?
This is education law.
Wow.
I had.
It's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
You know, the dog
It
ate my
was-
homework, I forgot to show up and you throw me off? I mean,
Yeah.
come on, I mean, that's
Yeah, I know.
basically what it says. You know, it's
Well,
like, wow.
it may be declared, it doesn't say that we have to.
Right.
So it doesn't bind the board to anything. I think one, and I should just mention, there's a, NISBA also offers a board member resignation policy, which they did not recommend to us and did not supply to us. And if
Just trying to keep that idea out of our heads, it sounds like.
would the board want us to retrieve that from NISBA for your consideration, or should we leave it in limbo?
Serve your sentence.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. Any further questions or discussions? These are the short ones.
right. Filling board vacancies, and this one? No?
I second that too.
Okay, move to.
Second.
Okay. Now this one, we did have a recommendation for the power to fill any vacancy by majority vote. So there are it's either to appoint someone or to hold a new election, shall have the power to call a special school district election. At the last board member resignation, the board chose to leave that position vacant until the next election. Kira, did you check on whether that was allowed under here?
I did, but I didn't know I was going to have to report tonight, so I can't remember. I remember the answer to the other question, but I can't remember this one.
Fair enough.
Well,
But
this
allows
that.
Oh,
This allows that. This says the board has the power.
Yeah.
Doesn't say it must. It says it has the power. So you can execute on that if you want to, but you don't have to.
So that if you are going to fill the position, you do it by one of two means.
Right. Special election or
And you have the option to leave it vacant
That was
until
the
the next
question I posed, and
election.
I just don't want to, I don't want to quote it incorrectly, so I'll forward that answer along as well.
That's fair.
Right. The
Ooh, substantially the same. Okay.
All right, now, move 20, oh, yes, okay, back to 2150.
Can we go back to that one for a second?
Sure.
To Brad's point, there seems to be an inconsistency between the word has in the first paragraph, which indicates that we have an option. And the second paragraph says we actually shall. Right?
Well.
To be perfectly clear, I would probably change the language in the second.
the person who may be so appointed.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
I could see how those two could lead to some confusion being together.
So where do those words go? Did Kira get that?
Board of Education has the power, and the board shall have the power to call a special school district election.
Second sentence of the first paragraph.
Oh, okay.
The person who may be so appointed.
Yeah.
So that you make it optional.
Got that, Kira? Second
Yes,
sentence.
who may be.
Yeah, the law's pretty clear. If not the policy, the law's clear. I'll put it that way. Anything else on that one? We're getting clarifications from Kira. Pat, you want to go on to the next?
Yes, this is policy 2160, move. And this is a required officer and employee code of ethics. And as NISBA notes, this is substantially the same as the board's current policy, but adds definitions at the beginning. And that is the definition of contract, definition of interest.
Yeah.
And moving further down under gifts, there is an optional paragraph about gifts from children, which I believe we have all received in our capacity as board members. And that is an optional paragraph that
Just break it. Delete it.
Okay. Sure.
the distribution of the code of ethics apparently falls to the superintendent. So if Dr. Brown would like to weigh in on this yet additional duty.
May I? Yes, ma'am. I will.
Okay.
Brad, is this the thing about
Where are you? What page?
I don't know, this policy have to do with, like, what if one of our children wanted to work here?
Yeah, and it's allowed, I just read it. Number 4.
That's not a,
It's rather convoluted here, right?
no, number 4, right, that,
A contract
Yeah.
between the district is her spouse, minor child, or dependent, except for an employment contract. So you may have a spouse, a child, or a dependent who's employed by the district. And that specifically does not create a conflict.
You're right. So if this were our policy, you could have,
I would never move it.
well, but I think you legally could. I don't think.
But I wouldn't.
All right, thanks, Brad.
Typically, board members will walk out of the room if their spouse or relative is being
This
appointed
says if
to a
they're
position.
employed, it doesn't say actually voting on them.
Right.
I see those as different.
There's no need
I'm
to.
okay.
Right.
Thanks.
And that is the final policy for...
See, Pat, we could have done more. You didn't have confidence that we could get through
I
this.
appreciate that.
Thanks, Pat. That
I
was-
said to Sean, send it all. He said, no, they'll bulk.
Especially when we know how many policies do we have to go through, like 300 or so, whatever they are. Anyway, we need to get through them
Hopefully not, because it might be a lot.
Yes, we do.
altogether. Anything else on the policies? Can we move on? Are we good? Everyone's staring at their iPads. That's what happens when the technology gets in the room.
They're reading the policies. They're engaging.
They're engaging.
Fully engaged.
Engaging policies.
They're engaging policies.
I'd like to know how many board members were checking their email, or...
Come on.
I'm taking notes on the policies. How about that?
Once again,
I
I'd
don't
like
know
to
how to
thank Judy and Sean and Pat for being on the policy committee. I really appreciate that.
Thankless.
It's a big job, and they have not resigned yet because apparently you can't do that. So that's okay. There's no policy that allows you to.
You guys don't know how much fun we have at those meetings.
No, we don't.
Because nobody else ever comes.
Okay. Guess we'll have to go.
So we could stretch this out, but perhaps we should go home, Dr. Brown. But we're gonna
Announcements, reports.
we're gonna go ahead and finish up here. Anything from the board announcements?
Just on, sorry, back to policy, I just read the penalty section of it.
Yeah, let's go.
And it said,
Okay.
the accompanying regulation, and it's, if you violate the code of ethics, you may be fined, suspended, or removed from office. If someone could get some information about fine and what that means as far as, do we fine the...
No, in the manner provided by law.
No, we're
Yeah, I thought it said by law.
In the manner provided by law.
So it is what it is.
I'm curious what I'm looking at here, so...
Fair enough.
I'll throw you off.
Well, were you looking personally, or is this school district
I
personnel?
don't want to disclose that, but...
Okay. All right. So Kira's got a few things to look into, and we're very happy that we have a board clerk that can do that for us. So we're thumbs up on that, because the policy committee doesn't want to have to do that. So we appreciate it. Anything else, Brad? Do you have anything for?
Yeah, on reports, you see we've got another finance committee meeting coming up. And I didn't see it here. The date's March 22nd. We had a invigorating meeting the other day with the finance committee. I think we had a pretty good discussion. We had a peek at the parts of what's going to come forward at the next meeting on the budget. We had some discussions on uses of our reserves and fund balances. We're continuing to use those. We're lucky we've managed those well and are in reasonably good shape, but as I pointed out at that meeting, at some point it'll be necessary for the state of New York to re-engage in the process and increase aid at some point, but we are not, it won't be nice. But for the moment, I think we're we're going to be able to bring forward, the superintendent's going to be able to bring forward a budget that will get us where we want to be educationally, and I don't think, well, I know we won't be doing what the governor and the lieutenant governor do, which is blame our employees. We won't be doing that. That's not part of it, and we're not going to be looking at reductions as part of it either. So I thought it was a good discussion. Look forward to continuing at the next board meeting and then at the following finance committee meeting as well.
Right, and might as well follow up on that. You know, I think it's important to know that we were looking at the revenue side the other day, but that's, you know, what we've tried to do throughout this process is not let essentially an artificial tax levy limit drive what we do in the district, drive how we structure, develop our educational processes. So we really were looking at the revenue side and what the possibilities are there, and really looking for superintendent, our building leaders, you know, what are the educational needs in your building and how can we put all that together. And so we're going to get a look at that on the 13th. But certainly, well, Margaret's right, not right here. But certainly Margaret, Angela, and the board, and you know, certainly over the last 5 years, we've tried to structure the district so really we could withstand about anything that Albany could throw at us. So we're going to continue to do that. You know,
our discussions are very different than the discussions in other districts this year. I mean, we've all been reading the newspapers. We're having pretty different conversations. Our conversations are about teaching and learning.
And they're about cutting and burning. If I could. Well, frankly, they are. I mean, that's the reality. Our reality is going to be different, I believe, and so I think we can go to the public and within all limits imposed by outside this district, but as always, build the district and build the education programs that we want in this community. So that's what we're looking forward to. I mean, it wasn't an epiphany. So, oh my God, we can do this. As we said the other day, you know, it was many years in the making. This is not a surprise. This is, you know, we really expected to be able to handle where we are right now. It was actually refreshing that we didn't get an absolute cut in state aid. We actually, if we were flat, that would have been fine, but well, it would have been at least better than in the past few years. So we're looking at a few more resources from the state, not a lot, but at least we didn't have to make up, you know, a large cut as of right now, anyway, from the state. So we expect that to continue as we work through these next early few meetings and try to put together a budget that meets the needs of, you know, frankly, the kids and the building principals and staff, you know, in the classroom. You know, what do you need and how can we put it together? That's what we are going to try to do. And I'm going to stop talking, Dr. Brown. Anything else? Go ahead, Chris.
I had the pleasure today to visit the high school. Samantha Little was very courteous to me. I really had a great time watching our children learn and watching some of our professionals at work. Really makes me feel good about sitting at this table and representing all these folks here, but very impressive.
Okay.
Just wanted to thank the Finance Committee for the incredible job they do for everyone in this district and reiterate how lucky we are to have the individuals we have who have stepped forward to do this work. Thank you.
Policy committee person.
That's what you got as a policy committee person.
I never want to be on the Finance Committee. I wouldn't do you any good.
We all got our...
We all have our talents that we bring to bear. Eldred, go ahead.
For the record, I just want to say to Sue that we actually opened our mouths and said that we're excellent teachers for that. We actually said resources. We said a whole lot of things, and we often get accused of not saying.
As soon as I get my turn, I will recognize that.
All right, anything else from the board? And now we'll go to reprise. And Susan. Or, well, Susan, well, Shirley, you raised your hand. Susan just
Sure.
talked out of turn earlier, so
We
go ahead,
haven't
Shirley.
collaborated at all.
Okay.
Really.
No, they're separately and independent.
In answer, I want to thank Judy Maxwell for her most insightful and important question about trust. And one, I would like to humbly suggest, one small thing that could be done to really increase the trust in both the superintendent and the board would be to flesh out the action all of you as board members agreed upon last May before the election as an acceptable action, that of having non-voting teacher reps at the table. All of you said you had no objections, but it has not happened. And it would be a great act of trust, and I think it fits in with this new model of leadership that the superintendent has brought to us tonight, and would go well with his structure, and that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Gonna need a bigger table, but go ahead, Susan.
Good evening. First of all, thank you for spending the evening with me. I want to thank and notice how the tone of the commentary is changing. That in fact teachers are noting that board members are talking about effort and excellence. We appreciate it and we note it. We're also looking at the presence of board members in buildings. I'm hearing more about my board member was in the building. Notice the possessive tone. This is a lot of teachers really feel that you are their member, that this is the connection, and having you visible, which is hard because you work and you do all things, is noted and appreciated. So it's important for you to know that. Even if you don't hear and see what you want, the fact that you're there and people know you care makes a difference. These are all the interpersonal skills that we're working on. I note also in this plan, this very big plan we have, the change in the hierarchical structure. This change of the top-down model and pattern, which is not only in practice but also visually presented in the circle with the center coming in, is much more inclusive of individuals who may think out of the box. It gives people an opportunity to address some of the needs. You ask all the time, what is it that you need to make it better? How does it work? The articulation of that is very difficult. It takes courage. Because often what you're asking for is outside of the mainstream. It's a little different. It's not always academic. Sometimes it's social emotional. Sometimes it's just an act of communication. One simple aspect, for example, is that as we encourage teachers to call home and make contact with parents, we are struggling to find a phone that is private, that is in a room where I can either close the door or not have 5 or 6 volunteers, students, or other teachers in the room as I'm calling Johnny's or Jane's or whoever's mother to let them know that they're doing well, or that we have a concern, they're not in school, they're not feeling well. That sense of keeping confidentiality and respect for a family is very important. When I have to deliver the not so great news, I want to be able to do it with dignity and pride and not have 4 people listening into my conversation. And that's a struggle. So it sounds like a very small piece, but it's really a very big piece. When you have your 29 or 39 minutes of your prep or whatever, you're looking for a phone, you can't find it, you wait till the evening, it gets to be tough. So those are small things. In this new organization, I know that the devil's in the details, and I know that they're going to flesh out all the responsibilities in each of these jobs. And I'm hoping we're going to start to look at the people we have in-house and say, what is it that you do best? And how can we use that skill? Not as who can we find to fill a position and they'll learn and grow as they go. Let's take people who are strong with their abilities, and if we don't have people who have it, then let's provide them with the development so they then can deliver it. We as members of the association are looking forward to partnering and working together in the selection process. If we choose together and we're responsible together, we'll grow together, and that way we'll be more successful. And I like it when nobody yells at me, so I thank you for that as well.
Jay?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this earlier, but it was great to hear about the speech program that is being tried out and done. And I wanted to recognize that and also connect it to what I hope is the new structure we'll have that will take an idea like that and allow it and encourage it to be done and push out, because I think that's exactly what we're trying to have happen, those kinds of things. and not have obstacles to things like that happening.
Another one of our terrific ITA members.
There you go. Brock, go ahead.
I'd like to comment on what she said. Ms. Kennedy, yes. This is my first year being a rep, but I've been involved in student government all 4 years. And whenever I talk to a teacher about, creating positive change in the schools, is the first thing I hear is, where's my voice? Where's the teacher's voice? And I truly think that we should have a position on this board with a teacher rep. I've heard it a million times, and I think it should have it. So I'd like to recommend that, and I truly support it.
Thanks, Brian. Jay?
In terms of teacher participation, I just want it to be mentioned, and maybe it's a reminder, Susan comes to many of the board committee meetings, but teachers are allowed and encouraged to come to finance committee meetings and policy meetings and all of those meetings. And they're open to the public and they're open to teachers, and that's where a lot of the work, and they're more informal, they're discussion-like, and I encourage teachers to come to those meetings, and to this one of course too, but a lot of discussion and preparation for these meetings goes on in our subcommittees.
And frankly, we said that we've had those discussions with students in the past. I mean, there's one thing to come to a meeting, stay for a few hours, and then you come back in a couple of weeks. This is not really where the work gets done, and it is in the committee meetings. And so we'll deal with the other request, which I don't quite remember that we all said. We'll check the tape. But Shirley, I mean, you've mentioned it before, Shirley, and yes, we'll certainly look into it. But Chris, did you have someone? Who else?
I did, and really, especially after today's presentation, being a parent and having 4 kids moving through the Ithaca City School District, I can't say enough about how well our teachers perform. And really hearing this dialogue about collaboration, and quite honestly, this is a totally different dialogue. And it's moving forward about collaboration and leadership and also accountability, and everybody saying yes. And that's really the type of school district we have, and we're just moving forward with that. And to speak about teacher representation, teachers are more than welcome at anything because we value their input. I can't tell you how resourceful Judy is with her past experience. I mean, I have to go to her after I visit a school or something like that and say, okay, I got to pick your brain on this. And I ask other teachers who I do know and interact with. So please, just to extend off what Jay said, please come to our committee meetings and share your opinion and your input.
And my memory may be mistaken. I don't recall, Shirley, that the entire board ever took a position on that. I know that as a candidate, I said, sure, I would have no problem with that, because when I was president of Boynton PTA, I, policy wonk that I am, read the PTA bylaws, and it said we were supposed to have a teacher representative, which was a new thing. So we got one, and that was, and it was Tom Farrell. He was invaluable. Now I think it's Steve Kirsch, at the PTA level, we have student reps. I would support a teacher rep. I'll go right out and say it.
Make a motion, but not right now.
No.
Anyone else? I will wrap this up, but I will piggyback on about the value of our teachers, how good they are. Jay's a product of this district, as am I. My son my father is a product as well. But Jay and I weren't the best students, but I shouldn't speak for Jay. My kid had a great education and great experience in this district. The value of an Ithaca High School diploma be understated. We saw a gentleman come 62 years later to pick it up tonight. So that is something to remember. We've been doing this for 137 years. So we educate, meaning this district, our teachers, we educate the children of this community like no other, frankly, and we will continue to do so. So we're going to hopefully wrap it up, and that'll be it.
That's how you get your budget passed, you let the public know.
I second. And we are adjourned without objection.
I thought that
The